What's up everybody, welcome back. So in this video I wanted to talk about replicating the animation blueprint, but I also want to add a little side note to that. I probably wouldn't recommend replicating any of this at all, but still, since some of you asked, I'm going to show you. I'm also going to tell you why I probably wouldn't do it myself, and in another video I'm going to show you how I would set up my third-person character. That's a bit more conventional method using aim offsets and blend spaces, but for now I'm going to show you how you could replicate this IK stuff. So first of all, why I wouldn't replicate this myself. So the animations you make for the first person character, they won't look great for third person characters. The position of the weapon is way too high and things like that. A reload animation in first person doesn't look good in third person. So you would have to make new animations anyway. You would have to make a different animation blueprint anyway. And the fire animation we have, for example, with the recoil setup, we only move the gun like 2 or 3 units up. So in third person, you're hardly going to see things like that. And on top of that, if you have 20 or 30 characters walking around with IK-driven replicating blueprints, that's probably not the best thing. So I recommend doing this for first person characters, but you probably won't do it for your third person character, but I'm going to show you how you could do it. So let's start with that. So if we play this in a multiplayer setup, we're going to have a few problems. So let's play as a listen server. So we can't see each other, and if I shoot, you can see I have multiple crosshairs on my screen. So first let's fix that. I'm going to go to the event graph, and we need to make sure we only add the HUD to the local player. So I'm going to disconnect this part and I'm going to put it to the end of the event. So this is the begin play event. And first I'm going to add a branch over here, and I'm going to make sure I am a local player. So I'm going to check if this is a locally controlled pawn. And if that's true, I'm going to add my HUD, so that should fix the crosshair. Now we should set these two meshes on the right side here to disable only owner C, so that's over here, so we can see the other meshes. And if we check it out now, then at least we can see each other, and I only have one crosshair on my screen, so that works. Now there is an issue with this. You can't see other players aim up and down. So this is kind of a weird setup. Well, not weird, but it's not using any aim offsets or things like that. We have the first person camera. The first person camera that uses the control rotation of the controller. And the mesh is attached to the camera, so that's why the mesh is rotating when we move the camera. But the camera itself is not replicated, so I think we're going to have problems replicating that. I haven't looked into this too much. I know if I set it to component replicate over here, then at least you can see the host aim up and down. But I haven't really looked into it any further, and since I'm not going to use this setup, and I do not recommend using this setup, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. So you can see the host aim up and down, and we're going to leave it at that for now. And I'm going to show you how to replicate the stuff we made. So let's start with a reload animation. We're using montages over here. For a montage, you need to use a multicast event. That's also the case for things like particle effects, sounds, montages, animations. You need to play those in multicast events to make sure they show up in multiplayer. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to create a new custom function or a custom event, and I'm going to call that play reload montage. And I'm going to set it to run on server on the right side here for the replication options. So that means if a client calls this, it tells the server to execute this function. And then I'm going to create another custom event, and I'm going to call that server play reload animation, or reload montage, I'm sorry. And this is going to be replicated as a multicast event. So multicast events need to be called from the server, and they will be replicated to all of the connected clients and the server itself. So you need to make sure you use those. Now we don't want to add this over here. We want to add this in the multicast event. So that's actually going to play the animations. Come on. And now over here we want to check if we are the host or the client. So we're going to use the has authority node. So if we have authority, we most likely are the server. So I'm going to drag off here and call the multicast event directly because I'm the server, I can do that. And if I'm a client, I need to call the play reload montage event. So that's going to tell the server to play the server multicast event for me, and then that'll make everything work. So from the play reload montage, I want to call the server play reload montage event. And now that should work. So I'm going to compile and let's check it out. So first of all, I'm the server, and if I go and stand over here and I reload, you can see on the other screen the reload animation is playing. So the other way around, if I'm a client and I'm going to position myself over here and I start reloading, you can see on all of the screens, you can see all players reload, so that works. So the next thing we are going to do is work on the ADS function. So the ADS is driven by this variable, the aim alpha variable, and that variable needs to be replicated to make things work. So if I'm going to select this and set this to be replicated, then you're going to see for the host things will work. So if I ADS with the host, then you can see on the other screens I'm ADSing. But the other way around, things aren't working yet. So the client needs to have some work done. So we're going to fix that. Now we need to do the same thing basically. So we need to check if we are the server or not. The server has authority, so that's the one who changes variables. So if we are a client, we need to tell the server to change the variable for us. So I'm going to create a custom event over here, and I'm going to call that setAimAlpha. I'm going to keep that as a normal function, so I'm not going to replicate that. Then I'm going to create a second one and call that client setAimAlpha. Now that's going to be replicated to run on server. And then I'm going to create a third event, and that's going to be server setAimAlpha. And I don't think we need to replicate this, to be honest, because we don't need a multicast event. So a variable is replicated by itself if we set this to replicate over here. So that means if the server changes this variable, then it will get changed on all clients automatically. So we could leave it like this as long as we make sure the server calls this event. So we're going to drag off here and do has authority. If we have authority, we're going to call the server event, server setAimAlpha. And if we are the client, we're going to call the client setAimAlpha to tell the server to do it for us. And now all we need to do is make sure the reload alpha gets, or the aim alpha, sorry, gets passed on. So we're going to add inputs to these events, call them aim alpha, and make sure they are floats. Like this. And now over here we can call the aim alpha event, so set aim alpha, the normal event. So the reason I added this third event over here is because we have to do the same things twice, and I do not want to paste all of it in these events. So I'm simply going to make a third event that calls it to keep things a bit cleaner. So that's why we have 3 over here and we only have 2 events for the multicast. So let's do the same thing over here. like this. Now we need to make sure we connect up these floats as well. From the client set aim alpha, we're going to call the server function server set aim alpha, plug in this, and the server is simply going to set it for us. There we go. Now this should work. No, it didn't update the new input we added, so I'm gonna right click and refresh the node. I need to connect them back up, and that should fix the error. There we go. So now let's check it out. So the server side was already working, and that still works. And if I pick one of the clients right now, that also works. So you can see me aiming on the client screen, and if I go stand in front of the host, you can see me aiming as well. So I do want to add a little side note to this. You probably want to set a variable locally for clients as well. So if I put a setter over here and connect them up like this, this will make feel things a bit smoother for the client, and it'll reduce the feeling of lag. So especially with a bad connection, if I have to tell the server to do things for me, it's best to do them locally as well at the same time, so things feel a bit smoother. So right now, if I'm going to aim with my client, things will feel a bit better. There we go. Yeah, I clicked a bit the ADS button too soon, so if I start this project, you see the pawns need to load in, and if I start clicking before that happened, it's going to throw an error. So that's why we got a little error over there, but nothing to worry about. So we have things replicated over here, and that's pretty much all you need to know, to be honest. So the animation blueprint is replicated by default, and as long as you make sure that the variables or the events that drive it are replicated, then you are good to go. So replicate this aim alpha event to make the ADS work. Make sure that multicast events drive the animation blueprint. So if I want to make the fire weapon event work, for example, I need to make sure that the fire button pressed variable is replicated, and then I would need to call these animation instance events over here, these two, as a multicast event, and then that will make it work. So the reload montage, you need to multicast that as well. The fire montage, why am I messing those things up? I'm not sure, but so the fire montage, you need to multicast that as well, and the line trace, you don't want to multicast that, so you need to filter a few things out to make it work. But if I'm going to cut a corner over here, and I'm simply going to multicast it, so I'm going to create a custom event, call it fire weapon, set it to be a multicast event, and now call it. Now, as long as I do this from the server, this should work. So now if I start firing, you can see on the other screen the fire animation is playing. So like I mentioned before, it's a very tiny recoil animation, and it's probably not what you're looking for, but it works. We're also multicasting the trace right now, so that's not what you want to do, but you'll get the idea. I'm throwing a few errors over here, so this is not the way to do it. You need to add the events, separate the host from the client, and then make sure everything's get called correctly. But as long as you replicate variables and events that drive the animation blueprint, you are good to go. There's no need to do anything special in the animation blueprint itself, because that'll replicate by default. So I think I got everything covered. Thanks for watching. In the next video, I'm going to show you how I would set up my third-person mesh personally. So keep an eye on the channel. Later, guys. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked the video or you think you might have learned something, please consider leaving a like. I'll be back for more.